Welcome to the NEWS9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, NEWS9 Plus. On the 13th of December 2001, India's parliament was attacked. 5 terrorists breached the outer perimeter of parliament. They used a car with fake VIP stickers. But these terrorists were gunned down before they could even enter Parliament building. Now exactly 22 years later, 2 men breached Parliament. They entered the well of the house, sprayed smoke inside the house, and very fortunately for us, these men were unarmed. But it raises serious questions on how they managed to do it. How did they breach one of the most secure buildings in India? Joining me to discuss this and many other questions this incident raises are 2 distinguished members of the national security community, Mr. Yashovardhan Jha Azad and Major General VK Datta. Gentlemen, welcome to the NEWS9 Plus show. My colleague Kartikeya Sharma joins us as well. Mr. Azad, my first question to you. Was this a failure of imagination? Given the fact that there have been previous instances of people misusing the visitors gallery, did we not anticipate that someone could actually jump out and do what they did today?
Well, 2 things. One is, of course, there should have been more, I would say, caution exercised on a day like this, because this is the anniversary, the 22nd anniversary of the Parliament attack. So carries a lot of significance, that's true. Secondly, I would say that this was not what you call a complete failure. This was a failure of the men on duty who failed completely to screen the persons properly.
Right.
Now, you understand that the guests of the MPs, the list is given to the Parliament, and on a particular designated day, they get passes. This was, of course, very well timed with the agitation they were having outside Transport Bhavan. That was a earlier plan, which perhaps the MP himself wouldn't have known. But the screening process itself in the Parliament, there is of course the outer layer. There's a 3-layer of security for all sensitive places, and so Parliament too. But in this particular case, where the security failed was at the point where these guests were being screened. So first, when they are screened through the DFMD, that is the door fail, metal detectors, where you find out whether there is anything on their body, a metallic or something which can be found out. Secondly is with the handheld metal detector, where again there is a second check. And third, if there is any doubt, then there is physical frisking. Now, this is the point where they fail. Now, the screening, etc., is done by the plainclothes men, the Parliament duty group. The outside security is done by the CPOs, the paramilitary or what you call the Central Police Forces, that is the CRPF, ITPP, etc. So at this particular point, the personal security men failed in clearing these people. The third point, which I would say, is that they had come absolutely predetermined, because they jumped down. The visitors gallery is also about 12 to 15 feet. And with those canisters which were carrying the smoke, the MPs who were nearby felt that sting. So if there was something more to it, something more poisonous or chemical, it would have been a very, very serious mishap. Thank God no one was hurt. But yes, I will say that it was a very serious breach which needs to be looked into.
Very serious breach indeed, and it's one of those days that we are grateful that those people had nothing more in mind than to just create a commotion there. But Kartikeya, take us back to where you were on this day 22 years ago.
See, I was working for a magazine. I was walking towards Parliament from the PTI billeting, and I heard, I wouldn't say heard shots, but I heard something like a cracker burst. And the first thought was, well, maybe people are bursting crackers. And at that point of time, Parliament Annexi and the Parliament, there were 2 different compounds. Yeah. So you had a road, so you understood, there was a busy vehicular traffic. You didn't have too many barricades between Railway Bhavan and Vijay Chowk. You could just park yourself outside with your mics to that area which was built during Indira Gandhi's tenure, from where the journalists would enter. Then I started walking fast, and I suddenly realized there was a guy, I think a CRPF, who was being thrown off the wall. And then I realized that the shooting has happened, because one of them said, "What are you doing here?" runaway terrorists are inside the
My God,
complex.
right.
And by that time, I think the last shot had been fired, because I think it was after 20 minutes or 10 minutes that I heard a shot, and then later we came to know that SPG had actually shot the last terrorist.
Right.
So instead of running towards my office,
Yeah.
the first instinct was I ran towards the spot.
Right.
So and the gates were shut. So what I did was I ran through Vijay Chowk,
Yeah.
went past the main gate, but then a gentleman who was in charge, was in PM security, then Prabhakar, he was there, and he caught hold of my hand, Prabhakar. And the second thing I realized that he was on me on the ground, right in front of the main gate of the parliament.
Right.
Basically, he must have thought that the firing is still on. So everyone was lying down. And then I couldn't get up for next 1.5 hours because everything shut. And I saw, after some time, columns of military come in.
Right.
That was something unexpected at point of time. Vijay
Yeah.
Chowk, the military coming in, and those who were outside were outside. Those who were inside couldn't come out, and it was surreal, because
Yeah.
people don't recall there was hours and days there was a talk of the missing terrorist then.
Yes.
The missing terrorist.
A sixth terrorist.
The sixth terrorist.
Yes.
So, the people just couldn't get up. People couldn't move for next 1.5 hours.
Right.
Till everything was sanitized. It was ensured that the bodies aren't booby trapped. Even
Right.
then there was people had an idea that, the terrorists can booby trap, the bodies. After that, people came out, and then we understood the enormity of the situation, that people have died, but they couldn't enter you see, this parliament is very different from the parliament which
Yes.
has been built now. This parliament does not allow for people to move in a triangle, you
Yeah.
can't move like that. But in the earlier parliament, you could enter from gate number 4 and you can find yourself at gate number 12, or then you can go to the top floor, come back downstairs, and you can actually crisscross from one part of the parliament to other. The only two areas you were not allowed were the ways which connected the Lok Sabha chamber, which is Lok Sabha, and the Raj Sabha. But there was one way which connected one side of the parliament to the other, and that was one through which you could access the central hall. So,
Right.
this parliament is different from...
There's a lot
the,
of access control over here. Yeah.
But and people also don't realize one thing. You couldn't have jumped like this in Lok Sabha.
Right.
You would have landed on the chairs.
Right.
Because in Lok Sabha, the older Lok
The
Sabha,
old
you
Lok
would
Sabha,
write
yeah.
and bang on top of the speaker.
Yeah.
This is more like Rajya Sabha,
Yeah.
where you can see the chair.
Right.
That's how the Rajya Sabha in the older house is. But for them to jump,
Yeah.
what surprises me is that there's a watch and watch staff which
Yeah,
allows
exactly.
you to
Yes.
sit in a way. You sit like this. You
Right.
can't sit like this.
Yes.
You can't sit with your legs crossed like that. Even if if you wanted to hear something, the watch and ward would say, "Dhyan se apni pen piche kariye."
Right.
Nothing
right.
should fall.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there was no reaction when they got up, and
That's right.
there was no reaction, and people don't understand one thing, that there is no security in the house.
When the house is in...
And the only security is there when
yeah.
the Prime Minister is in the house, because
Right.
only SPG is allowed to be in the house.
Right.
And you have those holding areas for the PMO officers.
Yes.
It is where the two SPG guys would sit, or
Right.
3.
Yes.
They are the ones who carry the weapon. I'm just thinking, if PM was there,
Right.
and the SPG would have been there,
Yeah. They possibly would have...
I don't know what would have happened.
Exactly. I mean, that's a...
Because
nightmarish scenario there.
yeah, absolutely, because they are allowed there.
Yes.
And if you look at this,
Yeah. Yes.
MPs got hold of them.
Right, right.
And
They were
also gave
overpowered
them
by MPs. In fact, General Datta, I want to
and
bring...
gave them a good thrashing also.
I want to bring General Datta into this. People were just talking about precisely what you just mentioned. The fact that once these guys jumped into the well of the house and they were running around, they had a free run for a couple of minutes. And it was like, they were jumping over chairs and tables. And General Datta, what does this actually suggest? That how could they just run around so brazenly without being intercepted or, overpowered or, tased even?
I think Prabhakar has well covered that what would have happened if the SPG was there.
Yes.
And the same thing I told you that when in 1984, the special group was tasked to take over the PM security, the Parliament House and the PM office. The commandos were armed. We were looking after all the 3 places, and there were orders to shoot a man's state if something happened.
Right.
And that is what, since I was there that point in time in special group looking after the PM security and all these areas, there would have been a clean headshot without taking any chance.
Okay.
Because you cannot take a chance with the PM,
With the PM
being in the
around.
well,
Yes.
or for that matter, even any other member parliament.
Right.
Now the next question is that how did these guys run amok and they were not intercepted by the watch and ward staff?
Yes.
While you do not have armed people inside, but like you have common bouncers all over the place in bars, and various actors are carrying bouncers with them. You need somebody to put down a man physically.
Yes.
Whether he is part of the parliament or it's people jumping into the well or trying to throw a shoe at the speaker.
Yes.
So
yes, of
that
course.
kind of arrangement has to be there, and maybe they'll have to give a very serious thought to this. You cannot have people running, jumping over the tables,
Right.
and the members of the house are trying to apprehend this person.
Absolutely. In fact, I want to bring in Mr. Azad here at this point. You said, it's a very egregious breach of security. There's no two ways about it. It's probably one of the worst breaches of security that we've seen in the last few decades. What are the kind of measures that you would like to see? What is the kind of questions that the inquiry committee will now look into, Mr. Azad? And what is the kind of action you'd like to see now?
Some of the basic principles of VIP security is that, you have to neutralize the threat at every level.
Right.
So where do you neutralize the threat? The threat coming from outside, in what form will it come? Will it come in a physical form? Will it come in a different form? So that is how you start doing an inquiry. So where was the failure? The failure came when the personal screening was found short.
Right.
Why was it found short? Is it because of the quality of the personnel? Is it because of their forgetfulness? Is it because of lack of professionalism? Is it because of faulty technical equipment? Or is it because there is a failure to perceive some outside element of threat? For example, if you are passing through a metal detector and you have this canister, if it's made of plastic, will it be detected by the door frame metal detector, which
Not
only
likely.
detects metals? So the question is, these are the four areas where I would like to inquire. And the most important is, are these security personnel really alive to the situation? Can they, there are many other ways. You see, in the airport, you see people coming at least 15 feet before they are frisked
Yes.
to the actual person. That's the time when you watch the person, see his gait. Is there something wrong with his shoe?
Right,
Is there something wrong with his belt? These are things which you have to look into. But I would firmly put the blame on those personnel. It was lackadaisical. It was shorn of professionalism, and therefore they need to be trained. They need to be really geared up to protect the Parliament House. That's the most important.
So it's Kartikeya, as Mr. Azad was saying, it seems like a human failure over here. I mean, Parliament seems to have the best of physical security in terms of door frame detectors and tire slashers and CCTVs, but the human element that he mentioned, so important in averting attacks and assaults like this.
I'm just, there's something called premediation of crime,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if there were two people outside and there were two people inside, then it means that it was a four-way conversation.
Right.
If it was a four-way conversation, it was a conspiracy.
Yes.
So, and you don't directly get admitted. You can't blame the member of parliament, because thousands of people would say, "Mujhe aaj parliament jana hai, no, I want to go to central secretariat, nahi mera wo kaam, hospital jana hai, AIIMS." So it's very difficult to pin him down. He would sign it. But these people are vetted by intelligence. I am a PIB card holder.
Yes.
Tomorrow I can get my parliament pass paid. I don't have a parliament pass, but as per my seniority, I have covered 10 years of Lok Sabha. I can get a permanent pass within 48 hours.
Right.
But these people who are not vetted by MHA, which needs to be vetted. So first thing which struck me as a journalist was, boss, were they vetted?
Yes.
One. Secondly, if they were vetted, there was no check on their antecedents. I don't think they are like Greenpeace activists. I don't think so.
Right.
Those were the words they didn't use.
Yes.
I really don't want to get into it and impress any meaning in front of our audience. Let police come out with an official version.
Yes.
They said something which was political. That's number two. Number three is, there is not one level of check. As Mr. Azad said, there are multiple levels of checks.
layers.
For example, Parliament has a very unique system. You are checked at the gate, then you are checked at this, then when you go inside, then you are checked.
There are at least 5 layers of
and
security.
then you are checked when you are going towards the galleries.
Yeah.
So 2 people frisk you at the same
Yes,
time. Say
yes.
one is sitting like this.
Yeah.
So he will be taking care of your belt and below.
Right.
The other person will be standing.
Yeah.
So you are frisked simultaneously.
Right.
He would frisk you from here, and simultaneously frisking takes place here.
Yes.
So my understanding is that at a level, this is one, frisking
Right.
was not done properly.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's an intelligence issue.
Yes.
They are making a statement in the Parliament of India
Right.
on the day of 13th December.
Yeah, in fact, General Datta, this is a very important point here, and we've kept emphasizing the fact that it was the 22nd anniversary of the Parliament attack, and then you have not so long ago Mr. Gurpatwant Pannu threatening to attack Parliament. And despite all of this, on a day like this, you let an incident like this happen. I mean, it points to a very
And they
serious
rigged the
failure.
rules. They rigged the rules. They are
Exactly.
not. They were trespassers. They
Yeah.
used the rules and they jumped.
Exactly like what they did in 2001. They used the VIP stickers on the cars to breach
They rigged the
Parliament
rules.
security. So they've actually used the Parliament rules only to get inside, and in 2001 and in 2023. And fortunately, nothing happened
Yes.
today.
Yeah, Sandeep. I'll just come in. What Mr. Kartikeyan has said is very correct. Now the thing is that for the Parliament staff, there are regular exercises which are held
Yes.
to put them through various situations. To the extent that the National Disaster Management Authority also carries out a training in CBRN,
Yes.
chemical, biological, radiological issues. Now, let's say that this was a chemical stick. You know,
Yeah.
anything which emits smoke, whether it's phosphorus or otherwise, is a chemical.
Right.
That means a chemical has gone inside the Parliament House.
Correct.
Yes.
What were the staff who has been trained in CBRN doing?
Right.
Why were not they able, or why were they not trained or put in place to carry out a check for
Yeah.
any CBRN? You
Right.
even have dogs, sniffer dogs, who can check out a chemical.
Absolutely.
We
Yes.
have sensors which can check out a chemical.
That's
various
another
kind of
big
chemical.
breach. I mean, the fact that they could get that chemical inside without being detected.
And then you are aware that when there is a high threat level, even in the airport, they make you take off your shoes.
Yes.
Especially the shoes which are slightly having a thick sole, or they have a suspicious look. They make you take them out. And the person who's frisking you checks them through the X-ray and also physically.
Right.
And then when you talk about the incident, 13 December 2001
Yes.
and 13 December today, warnings been given by Gurpatwant Singh.
Yes.
What happened in Yom Kippur in Israel? What
Right.
happened on the 7th of October?
Yes.
Same thing, same situation. You are in a situation where there is an event,
Yes.
where something has happened in the history, in the past, and the people will try to hit you then to
Right.
tell you that you stand and where
Absolutely.
you stand.
And I'm
Okay.
afraid we're totally out of
Yes,
time,
definitely.
General Datta. And, on a day like this, we can only pray once again at our good fortune that nothing happened. It was just two stupid people trying to stage a
And
protest.
you know,
But-
people fail to understand that a trained person can weaponize anything, you know.
Yes.
You can,
Use objects
you can
around them,
weaponize your
yeah.
finger.
Yes.
You can weaponize a pen.
Yeah.
You can weaponize that laptop.
Right.
You can weaponize anything if you want to kill someone.
Yes.
So I mean to say,
A breach is a breach.
a breach is a breach.
Absolutely.
Imagine if a trained commando would have dropped.
Yes.
He would have weaponized anything.
Right.
I think that
And we
enormity
are
of the situation
very
is
fortunate,
not.
Kartikeya, that we didn't have any trained commandos. I mean, that's one of our good fortunes, that this incident, while as serious as it wasn't worse than this. Right. Thank you very much, Kartikeya, and thank you, General Datta. We'll keep coming back to you for news and updates on the News9 Plus show. Keep watching us. In 2008, BSP Supremo Mayawati declared in her biography that her political heir would not be from her family. Well, 15 years is a long time in politics, and Behenji has had a rethink since then. She recently anointed her nephew, Akash Anand, as her political successor. Our story, Family Planning, decodes how India's politicians like to keep it within the family. Let's watch.
ये जो विरासत और वारसा बारिश के रूप में चल रहा है, डायनेस्टी के रूप में चल रहा है। कोई डायनेमिक्स है ही नहीं। एक परिवार के लोग ही उस पार्टी के अध्यक्ष बने, उस पार्टी का पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड बने। आप देखिए हिंदुस्तान की बर्बादी कहाँ से हो रही है। जम्मू कश्मीर से शुरू करिए, पंजाब में देखिए, आप हरियाणा में देखिए, उत्तर प्रदेश देखिए, झारखंड देखिए, आप तमिलनाडु में जाइए, ये परिवार ही पार्टी चलाता है। ये लोकतंत्र के लिए बहुत से बड़ा खतरा है।
I don't see why you people have a problem with a lineage. And why just in politics?
As Nepo kids, we really don't get that much of an opportunity to prove ourselves.
Can a lawyer's son be a good lawyer? Yes. I consider it an affront to democracy.
In one statement, Mr. Modi is able to kill two birds, two of his opponents at the national level and at the state level.
Lawrence Bishnoi is one of India's most notorious gangsters. He's lodged in India's biggest prison, Tihar. But over the last few months, Bishnoi has managed to threaten Salman Khan and murder pop star Sidhu Moosewala. Let's watch the story by Deepak Badhana on how Bishnoi runs his gang from behind bars.
India's most high-profile prison, the Tihar jail, is now the headquarters of the country's most notorious crime syndicate. Lodged within these walls is a man who was once a rising student leader, a national-level athlete, and an aspiring politician. Today, he's India's most dangerous gangster. You know him as Lawrence Bishnoi. And India's prisons are apparently no bar to how Bishnoi runs India's largest criminal empire.
The COP28 summit in Dubai has ended with no clear commitment to phase out fossil fuels. Let's watch why COP28 was a flop.
Working overtime, the delegates at COP28 have now produced a new draft of the centerpiece agreement at the climate summit in Dubai. This document makes an unprecedented mention of transitioning away from fossil fuels. While this has been hailed by some as the beginning of the end for fossil fuels, there are still issues aplenty. Today we look at why COP28, hailed as a make or break moment for global climate action, may ultimately be a failure. One of the central controversies revolves around the absence of explicit language regarding the phasing out of fossil fuels. The new draft agreement has been welcomed, but it does not call for the world to phase out coal, oil and gas, as more than 100 countries had hoped, and instead includes loopholes that would allow for their use even beyond 2050. The previous draft didn't even include the term fossil fuels in the COP decision text, except for references to oil and gas subsidies, drawing criticism from climate negotiators, activists and nations who were advocating for bolder action. The leadership of COP28, particularly COP President Sultan Al Jaber, who also heads the UAE's national oil company, has faced allegations of bias. Some countries perceive the COP president as an unreliable broker, especially considering the opposition from oil and gas producing nations. Closed-door talks and a lack of transparency further contribute to a climate of mistrust. The global stocktake, intended to be a cornerstone of COP28, faces challenges in reaching a comprehensive agreement. The assessment of countries' progress since the Paris Agreement has encountered difficulties in addressing gaps and formulating a cohesive plan for future action. Negotiators are no doubt under immense pressure to produce a meaningful outcome. The absence of clear directives and the delay in producing a detailed draft text have heightened concerns about the conference's effectiveness. In conclusion, COP28 is grappling with controversies surrounding fossil fuel language, leadership bias, and challenges in key components like the GST. The failure to produce a clear pathway for phasing out fossil fuels and the perceived lack of ambition in the draft text are significant setbacks, raising doubts about the effectiveness of the summit in addressing the escalating climate crisis.
The Indian Navy's aircraft carrier INS Vikrant and its fighter jets played a crucial role in the liberation of Bangladesh. The Vikrant's fighter jets attacked Pakistani forces and prevented their seaward escape. The Vikrant was in short the Bangladesh Brahmastra. We leave you with this episode from our special series Nerves of Steel. You can download the NEWS9 Plus app from the App Store or the Play Store for more such exciting stories. Thanks for watching.
On the 3rd of December 1971, Pakistan's dictator General Yahya Khan launches a preemptive strike against Indian airfields. India declares war.
Pakistan launched a full-scale war against us.
The conflict is fought on two fronts, East and West. India plans to hold the Pakistani military in the West and advance in the East. East Pakistan is 1600 kilometers away from the western wing. It is connected only by air and sea. The air route is closed. In February 1971, an Indian Airlines flight is hijacked, taken to Lahore, Pakistan, and blown up. India responds by banning overflights by Pakistani aircraft. The sea is now Pakistan's only means of resupplying its eastern province. East Pakistan has multiple ports. General Yahya Khan can count on a fleet of merchant ships to bring in supplies. If the Indian army advances, these ships will evacuate soldiers from East Pakistan. Such a rescue has happened before. In 1940, Hitler invaded France. Great Britain rescued 300,000 French and British soldiers across the English Channel. It was called the Miracle of Dunkirk. 30 years later, Yahya's eastern commander, Lieutenant General Amir Abdullah Khan Niazi, is counting on such a miracle. But one force stands in General Niazi's way: the INS Vikrant. The Vikrant was brought from the United Kingdom in 1957. It was commissioned in 1961. It is Asia's only aircraft carrier. It can carry 23 aircrafts. The ship has not seen action in a decade, but that is about to change.